Welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we are going to introduce to you a new level of diversity training that the city is offering. This is a continuation of some of the workshops we've had before, but it opens up some new opportunities. My guests are from the Citizens Unity Commission, Latiesha, Handie, and one of our facilitators, Chadra, Pittman, Walke. How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Good. Now I want to start, before we describe to people what's new, but talk a little bit about diversity training, what the city has done in the past, and why we do it.
Definitely. So the Citizens Unity Commission was established in 1995, of course, with a learning educational component that was introduced in 2004, which is our Hampton Diversity College. It initially started off with a level 1, which was an introductory course to diversity as it relates to how we see difference in our community, how we see things in reference to religion, race, sexual orientation. We dived a little deeper in that.
And gender was in that one too, right?
Yeah. But gender actually was explored in level 2.
Oh.
So in level 1, we kind of give you a teaser of what you will then expand upon in level 2, in which we did have a panel that discussed sexual orientation and gender identity. The reason why we have these courses, and we feel it's most important to advertise them in our community, free and open to the public, of course, to City of Hampton residents as a preference, but if we have room and openings, we open it to the city at large, outside of the city, Hampton Roads. But the reason we felt it was important is because we want to be welcoming, supportive, and inclusive of all citizens, regardless of race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, and anything else that can establish us in difference.
So this has been going on, I'm counting on my fingers because I'm not so good at math, but for like 14 years or so.
Yes.
So we as a city started this. What kind of an impact or difference do you think it makes in our community?
Well, I believe that as we educate people to be more cognizant of the differences and the similarities, that those differences actually bring value, it creates a new pulse in the community in which we are establishing relationship building tools that that we can build upon these differences. So we see that as we're educating people, people are more expressive. They're more free to be who they are.
So, and I'm going to direct this one to Chadra because you're in the community and we're city employees.
Okay.
Right now in this country, there's been this appearance, at least, of people who are more free and more open at expressing views against diversity than we've seen, at least in the recent history. Certainly, there's been that in the past. What do you think can be gained by these discussions that have? How does it impact the community? How do you, as someone who's helping in this effort, see this?
Well, I think discussing diversity is just essential. Audre Lorde once said that it's not our differences that divide us, but it's our inability to see how our differences connect us to each other that causes that divide. We have to be willing to accept the things that are different about each other. The reality is that we individually have our own shared history and cultures, but we have a shared culture and community that we're living in. And it's not okay to use racial epithets. It's not okay to be sexist and say that women can't do certain kinds of jobs. It's not okay to say that someone who's in a wheelchair shouldn't work in a certain profession. So I think these kind of classes by the Unity Commission are really important because I think it's going to help shape the way in which people speak to each other. And it's going to broaden the scope of the way that we interact with each other.
And maybe we listen more than we talk sometimes. I think
listening is important.
Right now people are so polarized, and it's as if there's only two ways to see something and not all the areas in between.
Right. Well, we have more in common than we do different. And I think that's the thing. I mean, we can look at race, sexism, classism, ageism, homophobia, heterosexism. We can look at all these things that divide us, but if we look at the ways in which we're alike, I think we will, be able to move forward. Intersectionality is one of the pieces that we discuss or planning on discussing in the third session, and that's looking at the ways in which our lives overlap. So you're not just a woman. You're a woman from a certain ethnicity. You're a certain woman from a certain background, from a certain socioeconomic background. All those things are interwoven and make you who you are. And so a refusal to look at the total person is where I think those problems begin. But through these kinds of classes, I think it helps people have the language to be able to speak to each other in a way that is respectful and inclusive.
And so the way you do that is you sort of build and do some, basic kinds of discussions and training in level 1. And you told me a little bit, those main topics are what?
So we do build the capacity over time. And so in level...
People don't understand build capacity. That is a city and a trainer word.
So we build ability to understand over time. You like that word?
Yeah.
So we build the ability to understand over time. And so in level 1, you receive we'll say an introduction to diversity 101. That's understanding stereotypes, biases, discriminations. We look at world religions. We also explore things that make us different in terms of our orientation. And so we go a little bit different when it comes to race, culture, and ethnicity. In level 2, then we start to explore LGBTQ awareness.
And that's an acronym too. You better throw that one out and say it all.
Yes. So thank you for keeping me straight. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning. And there's a couple of more letters that we can consider, but right now we'll go for the sense of time with those. LGBTQ awareness, which is a learning suite where we introduce participants to the storylines of those that identify as such and that have lived that experience. And so it just gives you a little bit more exposure to people that may not be in the same lifestyles that you have, and they may be in the same lifestyles and have the same conditions that you have. We allow you to see that people are human. And so that's one of the things that we build in level 1 and level 2. And as Chadra was mentioning, in level 3, we go a little bit different when we explore the isms and socioeconomic status and class. We look at the things that make you different as far as equity and equality, equity versus equality.
And this is interesting because that's the level I think you're really going to get into, like, sociology. Not that the other ones aren't, but this one's going to go deeper. So how will you do that? And Chadra, what is your part in that?
So the social justice piece is crucial. We're going to look at equity and equality. And I think it's interesting when you're looking at social justice and specifically equity and equality. Equality is looking at the way in which we're treating people, okay? Equity is making sure everyone has the same access. And it's an interesting dynamic. Let's say if you're in a classroom and you have students that can't see, well, you want to treat everyone the same, right? So what would be equitable would be to give everyone glasses, right? But that's not needed. You have to fit the need of the person. So the only ones that need glasses, that get glasses, are the ones that need them, and that would be what's equitable. Having these conversations around equity and equality are very important because, as you said earlier, we are in the midst of a very interesting time in this country where people are saying things that I thought were of yesterday and of the past. And we're having experiences where people are dealing with discrimination and racism and sexism and classism and homophobia. And you would think that in 2018 we would be that much further. So.
I know, and there's big divides because when there are national surveys, white people tend to say things are just fine, don't need to talk about it, we all get along great. And African Americans tend to say, hello, not really. And it's the same thing about men and women. And you see that about Muslims. I mean, there's so much that people take for granted or just don't see.
But that's privilege, though.
Oh, it is.
And I think that that's something that needs to be discussed, too, because when you are looking at a situation only from your lens, and you're saying, well, it doesn't affect me, that's privilege, right? Yeah. But if you have the capacity to be empathetic, then that's where you could move the pendulum forward.
Well, and the national studies and surveys also suggest that when you get to know someone of a different well, I think we all know people of different genders, but who is of a different race or background or age
Right.
or religion
Or class.
a lot of those stereotypes fall away, but it takes that understanding. And I'm sure you can't bring in every variety of person's background, but as the classes go and you start talking about things and bringing in those different perspectives, I think it helps open people's eyes.
It does. And we wanted to make sure that when we do introduce this to the citizens, that to the public at large, that we have people that are service matter experts that will be able to facilitate these conversations in a way that brings a background of understanding in the topics that we're introducing. So as you mentioned about sociology, we made sure that we had someone that was equipped to educate our citizens and to allow them to explore and have a conversation about things such as socioeconomic status. I'm so happy about the lineup of new facilitators we do have. One being Dr. Tamika Lett. She is a professor for St. Leo's University. She also has a background in community service and human service. So we're excited about her coming aboard, and Chadra, of course, who will be giving us our introductory course to level 3, looking at social justice and equity versus equality.
Well, so the other thing it just occurred to me about adding this third level is that now, after 14 years or so of people going through Diversity 1 and then Diversity 2, you have a pool of folks who apparently said, hey, we want more. We want to delve deeper. We want to continue the discussion.
Exactly.
That's a great success.
And not only do they want to continue the conversation, they want to activate in that conversation. So level 3 actually introduced them to the opportunity to have their own small presentations on the diversity and inclusion that they see in their own communities, researching topic lines that address body image and size and things that we wouldn't normally see that divide us. And so we're excited about seeing what they're able to come up with after they've received this opportunity of learning through the Diversity College.
So who should sign up for Diversity College? And obviously, new people are not going to be ready for level 3 yet, but let's start, with the basics. Who should do that? Like if I'm sitting here going, I'm this old white lady, and y'all are gonna pick on me, and I don't want to do it.
It's you.
Yeah,
You need to come.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because as we have been expanding the brand, and I have to thank our marketing and outreach department who has created a lot of new material to advertise to the public at large, not just one set population. So thank you all for that. We want to see the faces that aren't traditionally in spaces talking about diversity and inclusion. So when you asked about who should participate, everyone should participate, because learning is a continuous process. And when you said about listening, sometimes listening requires silence. And they're the same letters, so if you look it up, you'll see that silent is in listening. And we want everyone to be there, even if it is just for that, just to listen to the voices of others.
And you're not going to pick on people. Like I think people feel like they will be picked on. They will be encouraged to contribute and explore their views, but it is a really safe environment. And I think, people who don't consider themselves as open might find that it's a really interesting experience. We're not out to change the world here, but just a
little bit.
Yeah, just open up and see what happens.
Right. And when you share your experience, we are enriched by that, because you offer us something that we have not yet seen. And so every voice matters. The diversity in the room is unique. And diversity meaning the difference that we see, and we want that. And so you enrich our spaces, and like you said, it is a safe space where you are free to learn, explore, express, and experience something new.
It sounds great. So now we've convinced those folks out there. How can they find out when these classes are offered, and how can they register? Because you do have only a set number you can take, because you want to keep the discussion viable and not overcrowd the room.
Right. So we try to keep our classes intimate, up to 20 people. You are able to register via our website at www.hampton.gov/unity. We have a diversity college piece there. You can also contact 311 if you would like for them to register you at 757-727-8311.
That's it.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can register there, and
everything's free.
everything's free.
And you, some of the classes are offered in the evening for folks who work, some of them in the daytime for folks, you know, who may want to get out during the daytime.
Right.
So lots of opportunities.
Lots.
Okay, well, thank you ladies very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I hope you will feel like this is a really good time to delve into some of these issues, to have the discussions, to open your eyes, and to share your own perspective, because your perspective matters. Thanks for watching.